Bitcoin is flagging. We've got the miners. They fell pretty nicely yesterday. It looks like they may have recovered a little bit here, and in the pre-market, they're doing some movement. We're going to look a little bit at seasonality as well today, and then we're also going to wrap up with looking at some of the tickers I talked about outside of miners like CRISPR, Adobe, Block, a few others there on that respect. So let's get right into this. And before we get started, go ahead and smash that like button for me. It helps the channel more than you know. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already and you've been with us a while. Also, the Trade Cave store on Etsy is back up. It was down for a little while. It is back up. It's got less products than it had before, but I am working on putting all of them back onto the store. We were down for a little while. It is back up now. Go ahead and check that out. Link in the description as well as in the channel bio. Bitcoin is creating a bull flag right here. We're currently at a bull flag. If we can close above, honestly, our current price today, so basically closing above 65,100-ish here today, that's going to look really good. Now, if we broke above above 66,000, so if we could close above 66,000, that would be a very nice confirmation of this bull flag, and that would look like this thing's going to take us much, much higher. So we could flag here, I don't know, today, tomorrow, maybe even for another few days before we take off. We have met the 5-day moving average, so we do have room to move up considerably from here since we have hit the 5-day moving average. And if we zoom out a little bit, yeah, we don't hit the upper bands of the fib Bollinger until we get all the way up to $77,000, and then we've got 88,000 is now where the top of the fib Bollinger bands lies right now on the daily. So this could flag a little bit more and then send us higher. Now, we do know that Bitcoin likes to mess with us and create things like bull flags and bear flags and then reverse hard the other way. I don't necessarily think that's going to happen right now, at least not in July and possibly not in the first week or two of August either. The seasonality just is with us in terms of bullishness. We also have more people entering this space and getting excited about it. And we can see from the ETF inflows that there's, that constant bid for it. I am thinking that this whole formation right here could turn into something of an inverse head and shoulders. And if that were to happen, we would get a move, potentially get a move something like this off the top of that. And if we did, the top of that shoulder there, now that could potentially take us up to like $74,000, which would be making a brand new all-time high. So that'd be great. I'd be pretty excited about that. Yeah. So that's going on with Bitcoin right now. It is looking bullish. Now, remember though, sometimes Bitcoin looks a certain way and then does other things, does other behaviors, just like, let me turn this off, just like back here on July 10th and 11th, where everyone said this was a bearish tweezer and we were going to go down from here. Well, guess what? We launched from there. I'm saying this looks like a bull flag and could take us to brand new all-time highs, but we do know Bitcoin, if Bitcoin comes down below $64,000, this is going to be invalidated and we're likely going to come back down to about $60,000 if that happens. I'm not saying it's going to, I'm just saying that's the other side of the coin. If we get underneath 64,000, 60 is very likely coming in. If we get above 66,000, we're likely going back to all-time highs. That's basically all I want you to take away from that. All right, let's take a look at the miners. So, I did mention yesterday, I was talking about the Heikin-Ashi candles yesterday, and I was talking about CleanSpark, how it has this tendency to, as soon as it prints a red Heikin-Ashi candle, that it tends to come back down to $15. Now, I did get some questions in the comments yesterday if I had sold or not. I have not sold. I did not sell anything of my CleanSpark. I didn't sell any of my Bitcoin miners. Actually, the only thing I sold yesterday was MicroStrategy, and that was because it hit my stop loss, which I'm a little bit upset about, because it immediately recovered and is now much higher than where my stop loss was, but that's okay. I decided I set that stop loss thinking I want to secure my $300 of profit from this trade, within a week. I'm not too upset about that. And if price goes higher and starts showing bullishness, I guess I will just pay more to have some MicroStrategy in my portfolio at that point. So I made, I ran it up from 1260 to 1560. I was pretty happy about that, and that's okay. All right. Anyways, I did not sell anything else. And the only reason I sold that was because I had a stop loss in place. Okay. So we got a doji candle yesterday on CleanSpark. This is interesting. Now, we have done this before where we got a doji candle near the top. Now we got it right here. on May 21st, we got a doji, which followed by a blow off top. If we get a candle that looks anything like the May 2022 candle today, then I'll be concerned. Okay, then I'll start getting concerned. Now we also got a doji here on June 14th, which was followed by 3 days of growth, where it went from $18 all the way up to almost $21. Okay, so we could see that, but this could potentially be the doji that takes us above 21.36 and sees us finally make a run at this $24 high back here from March. Okay, so that's why I didn't sell anything yet. Let's turn on the Heikanashis. Let's see how that looks. How did it come out yesterday? The daily is still green. Okay, so that's good. So I think in this case, I'm going to be leaning on the daily in terms of whether or not the daily turns red, thinking about it in those terms, because we did get a 4-hour Heikinashi red. And if we've noticed in the past, usually the red Heikinashi on the 4-hour is showing that we are going to come down. And that is a little bit scary. But if you notice, remember this back here, this June 14th area here? This is where we had that doji, right? That was followed up by how much percent up? By 17% up. This doji here on June 14th is very similar to where we have our red candle here on the yesterday on July 17th. I mean, so this candle looks very similar to that candle there, and the formation coming into it looks very similar. So I would not be surprised if we had another 10-15% in clean spark before we saw any kind of turnaround. So let's see what would 17% be? 17% would take us above the 23.36 line, up to about 21.86 or so. So that is why I didn't sell yet. Okay, it's all about looking at patterns, right? So I'm not thrown out. Now the other reason I didn't sell is because honestly I'm like 80%. Yeah, I'm about 80% in profit on my CleanSpark shares. I have a lot of room. This thing can come all the way down to $12 before I start thinking about selling it to make sure I don't go red. So if you bought at $24, yeah, maybe you'd be a little more feeling the heat a little bit more, in which case, of course, none of this is financial advice and not a suggestion to buy, sell, or hold any asset whatsoever. And if you did buy at 24, you should be very interested in it at 19, not the other way around, not thinking about selling. But I'm not necessarily certain this is ready to come back to $15 yet. I do want to see a little more price action out of this thing, especially with this doji and the pre-market moving up on this. Okay, now let's take a look at Mara. How did Mara do yesterday? Same doji. It was down 4.38% yesterday. It is above this line here, though. This is good. Mara is in a place of strength right now. I could see Mara coming higher. I could see Mara running for $30 here very soon. I like the way this looks. As long as it can stay up above this like 22.75 area, honestly, preferably if it could stay above $24. If it could stay above $24, that'd be quite bullish for Mara. Now we are outside of the ATR bands, okay, but we do have the fibs above at 30. It could run all the way up there. Like it's gotten on top of the ATR bands before and stayed there. So let's not count it out just yet in terms of it coming down. We don't necessarily think it's going to do that. The pre-market's already moving up. We'll find out in about 5 minutes if it's going to hold that or not. Now we do know pre-market being up for miners can sometimes lead to pretty bad sell-offs during the day. So let's keep our eyes on that. But Mara looks great right now. We got that thrust up. We held it for a day. We printed a doji yesterday. If we can hold it again today, get the 5-day moving average, come up and meet us around $24, $25. Oof, man, we can see this thing run up to $30 pretty easily. All right, let's take a look at RIOT. How's RIOT doing? RIOT finally got some movement. RIOT actually was not so bad. It was down 2.2% yesterday. Also a doji. It is looking very much like Marathon in terms of this upward thrust, and it held it. And it's looking really nice. It broke out of a downtrend. And whereas CleanSpark is still within its range, CleanSpark never left its range. And that's why I'm a little concerned about it coming back to 15, more so than I am concerned about RIOT or Mara coming back down to whatever levels they were, like Mara back to 20 or RIOT back to 10. I'm more concerned about CleanSpark in that respect because it stayed within its range, where Mara and RIOT, they broke out of their range and they're holding above that range. That's a big important difference here. So RIOT actually has room up here. RIOT has room up to about $16, honestly. I'm not saying it's going to do that necessarily. Like, it does need to clear and close above 1280 before I'm like, yeah, it's going to do it. But it looks good right now. I'm feeling good about it right now. Okay, let's move on to Bitfarms. Bitfarms, Ooh, I have too many drawings. Okay, Bitfarms, a little less good. A little less good on Bitfarms. So Bitfarms was only down 0.34%, but I don't like this candle right here. I don't like the candle that it printed yesterday. That's not great. I'm going to have to do a wait and see on this, see what's going on here. We are right on this line of support, which honestly is not that great of a line of support. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. That has no place here anymore. Okay, the 5-day could catch us. So we might stop at 282 here. I really need to see how price interacts if it comes to 282, as well as how it interacts when it goes to 322. Is it going to break above the ATRs and go into the fib bands up here? Or is it going to come back down to the center of the ATRs and find support or fall down through it? If it falls down through it, we're coming down to 242, 250, right? If it breaks out above it, we could see it run all the way up into almost $5. So I don't like the candle in Bitfarms as much. It came right up to the top of the bodies over here from June 17th and June 18th, and then failed with a really big wick on top. I don't like that wick on top. This is like a thing pointing down. The last time we got a candle like this was back here on June 25th. That was followed by, that was followed by a downward move of 17%. So if we were to do that now, we were to come 17% down now, that would take us all the way back down to 244. Now, pre-market's moving up, so maybe it'll be okay. Maybe it won't do that, but I don't like the candle. That's all I'm saying. I don't like that candle. Bit Digital. How's Bit Digital doing? Bit Digital also printed not too bad. I mean, it looks a little bit like it's a little bit like what we saw on Bitfarms, but it came to the 5-day, bounced, and then it got stuck under the ATR. I really need to see what it's going to do from here. This little cluster here worries me a little bit. I don't love that little cluster being up there. That could end up being something like an island reversal if it does decide to come down and by the end of the week and do like a little gap down to like 380, and we could find ourselves back at 350 or so pretty quick. Also not in love with the current formation of Bit Digital, but as long as Bit Digital holds above this yellow line, above 355, it is in that bullish trajectory up. You see how it's just kind of scooping up, getting steeper and steeper as it goes. Yeah, I'm fine with this as long as it's above that yellow line there. Bit Digital is still moving up. Next week, we have the Ethereum ETFs releasing, coming out, or at least it's speculated that it's almost certainly going to happen next week. So that is going to be very bullish for Bit Digital. I see it continuing to truck along. Let's go ahead and move on to IREN. I think IREN was interesting yesterday. IREN came down 8.75% yesterday. We did not close beneath 1127. We danced below it a little bit, but we didn't close beneath it. Pre-market is at 1156 right now. We're about to open here in a moment. I still see us coming down. So we're below this yellow line here. The longer we're below this thing, the more likely it is we come to the blue line down here at 944 right now. So IREN is still looking a little bit weak. Now it could form a base and curl back up, but it is looking weaker than some of its peers in that respect. Let's move on to CORZ. Honestly, CORZ looks strong. It's above the yellow line. It bounced off the 5-day moving average. It's bouncing between the 5-day moving average and the top of the ATR bands. It is up in the pre-market. It printed a doji just like Mara and RIOT. It is above this cluster right here, this cluster of price action. It is trading up solidly above that and holding above that, which is a bullish sort of signal. Market just opened. It is coming back down a little bit. Hopefully it doesn't come down a lot. Let's take a look at HUT. We haven't looked at HUT in a while. That's not HUT. HUT in a while. What's going on here? All right, here we go. Okay, HUT. What's going on here? Let me see here. Why isn't it turning on my stuff? Oh, it's still thinking. Okay. HUT is on a heater. It is way hot up here. It's above the fib bands. It's above the ATR bands. It's above the 5-day moving average. Could it keep going? Yeah, sure, it could keep going. But I think it will. Not necessarily. It does look like this is starting to weaken off. We got volume turning gray here on the oscillator. We're coming down on the RSI. The RSI is still a little bit overbought right now. I would like to see HUT come back down to about 1684 before I'd be thinking it wants to go higher, or at least somewhere in between 1957 and 1684. I want to see it get in between, back in there to start like looking healthier, because like right now, it's looking very much like it did back here in July 2023, where it went way high and then came way low. So I would be expecting this thing to come back down at least to 14.64 after this run up, maybe even back down to this red line down here at about $13 after this run up here sometime in September or October for HUT. Let's see how CIFR's doing. So they decided they're going to sell themselves. And they are at, oh, wow, they're holding up there. I was thinking this thing would tank. It didn't. Let's see. I do still think this was a blow off top candle here that we saw yesterday. I am still expecting some kind of weakness in the stock, but we'll see. We'll see. It's above all the lines. Yeah, that's it. I mean, honestly, I don't know what it's going to do when a company says it's going to sell itself. I mean, is it going to continue to trade up? I don't know. This one's hard to say now since that news came out. It's hard to predict anything that's going on with CIFR. Anyways, let's take a look at seasonality. So seasonality. I'm on unusual whales here. This is on Mara. I'm just going to show Mara because all the other ones were pretty similar in the way that they show the seasonality. Anyways, you can see for July, the average move for July is 33%. How much have we done so far for the month of July? Let's go to monthly. Okay, we're on monthly now. In the month of July, so far, we've done 30% for Mara. That's about average. It's about average. This is why I like looking at seasonality. We could do 3% more and still be just within average. Now, one thing I do want to point out here is that 2 times in the history before we have done on Mara, we have gone up. No, it's 3. 3 times in the history of Mara, we have gone up well over 100% in the month of July. The only other month that we really see big over 100% moves, well, there's a couple here. There's one time in February it happened. One time in January it happened. I mean, February went up 226% once. One time in September it hit 172 in November. November is the only other one that has multiples in the same month of being over 100%. So we could see in the last 2 weeks of July, we could see this thing run up another 70%, and that would not be out of the ordinary for Mara or any of the other miners. It's gone up as high as 143% in July before, and it did in 2013, it did it in 2020, which was the last halving year, mind you. So, I mean, that's in the cards, halving year. It did it again in 2022, which is interesting because, that was the bottom of the market. June 2022 was the bottom of the market, like the absolute bottom, the bear of the winter. So we're again in an election year, a halving year. Last time we had an election year and a halving year, 125%. Are we really going to be stuck with just being at 30% for July in 2024? I don't think so. This thing needs to be updated from yesterday's move, I think. But I don't think so. I think we still have room to run, especially on Mara, especially after it shows that it broke above that cluster of price action that it had been stuck in for a while. All right, let's move on to some other tickers right now. So first, let's look at CRSP. Remember when I was talking about CRSP at this bull flag right here, saying that this looked like a cup and handle sort of move? Well, it turns out that it was. All right. Turns out that it was. It went a lot faster than I thought it would. In one day, it went up 9%. Boom, hit the top of the ATRs, came back down. I actually bought some of this yesterday. So I bought some of this at $60 yesterday. It is, it's about flat to where I was yesterday. I'm not too concerned about that necessarily. What I am interested in is the fact that it's making bullish formations on its way up to this top up here at $68. That's nice. My target here really is like 65 to 68, right? But the thing that's really interesting, and I'm going to have to turn it onto the weekly for this one. Let me turn this off and let me turn it onto the weekly. All right, yeah, that's good. Let me turn off my drawings. All right, no, I'm going to need these on. Okay, so this thing likes to do a base and move up, right? Like we had this base right back here. In 2023, it made a base and then went up big off of that base. We're making a base here, and it's trying to break out but getting shut down. Now with interest rates actually looking like they're going to be cut, with money actually flowing back into smaller caps and riskier plays, risk on assets. This could actually make this breakout. If we get above $65, that breakout becomes a reality, and we get that breakout, we're likely going to find ourselves at $80-ish on CRSP very, very quickly. On the other side of things, the downside risk really is just down to about $52. So I would lose about $10 per share on the downside. And if it went any lower than that, I would cut it and wait and see for it to reset. But we do see that, okay, now on a broader time frame. Now let me go on a broader time frame and talk about that same thing I was just talking about. Okay, so let me go back here. All right. We got this 3 times in the past, it's done a flattening out and then a burst up, right? So we had right back here, and then it went up, okay? So this is what we like to call Wyckoff. So this is looking like a Wyckoff pattern, right? We do an accumulation base, an acceleration jump up, a distribution, and then a decline. And then we had another one right here, an accumulation. This one was a bit slanted, accumulation, a burst up, a distribution, a decline. Now we're looking at an accumulation right here. We're looking at where's this burst up going to go to? Notice that also the last 2 times this happened, the burst up got bigger. Also, the accumulation was higher. So the accumulation started in 2017 down in the $16 range. The next time it was in the $30 to $50 range. This time it was in the $40 to $88 range for the accumulation period. And that first pop off for CRSP was about 304%. The second pop off for this thing was, let's go from the top of it here, was about 200%. So let's say this does like 150% from the top here, right? Like, well, 150 would just take us there, right? Let's say it does about 200% again. $255 would be our top of the range here in that respect. Okay, so CRSP is creating an accumulation zone. Soon, I think we'll be seeing that thrust up for the breakout before we start showing the distribution pattern and then fall again on CRSP. It's doing a pretty classic Wyckoff move there. Okay, that's my outlook on CRSP. I did buy CRSP. Let's take a look at ChargePoint. Let's take a look at ChargePoint real quick. I did buy some ChargePoint as well. Now this chart looks disgusting, right? Looks terrible. It went all the way up to $50 in 2021 and came all the way down to less than $2 this year. And it's been in this sell-off. Now, one thing I like about this pattern, right? Okay, one really good thing I like about this is this is looking a lot like a falling wedge, right? This is looking a lot like a falling wedge. It's falling, it's a wedge. And right now, it broke out of that, right? Whoops. So it came out of the wedge. Let me draw that a little better. There we go. It came out of the top of the wedge. It came out sideways, but that's okay. It's out of the wedge. That's good. It's not just falling endlessly anymore. Now, that's probably because it got to less than $2. But anyways, that is an interesting outlook for me. Now, it was coming down in this channel here. It broke above that channel. It's holding above that channel. I like that. I like that a lot because outside, so there was this big dramatic sell-off in 2023 where it went from $7 all the way down, right? And it was in this very controlled, very dramatic sell-off, okay? So that means the only real resistance above where we currently are, well, there's 325 as light resistance, but the only real resistance above where we currently are is up at $7.34. That's where we're going to hit any type of actual resistance. And the resistance doesn't get super heavy until we get all the way up to almost $9 where we're coming up to this flat part where it opened. Also, the other thing to keep in mind here is that big institutions are significantly underwater on this play. If I go to my small caps, if I go to my Webull and I look at institutions, right? So I go to Webull. I'm going to go to my ChargePoint here, and we're going to go to Sage Tracker, and I'll scroll down to ownership. Okay, ownership. Look at those names. We got Vanguard, BlackRock, Citigroup, State Street. Look at the price they paid for it. Vanguard, they have an average share of $17.41. BlackRock owns this at an average of $17. Citigroup at an average of $4.8. That's twice what our current value is. State Street, an average of $15.31. Investco, average of $11.97. So yeah, that's interesting. Charles Schwab, average $17. Lots going on here. Now, let's go see how much money they have in here. So first of all, Vanguard owns 8.6% of this company. They have almost $70 million into it, and that's considering that a lot of their shares are at $17. So they paid significantly more money for this thing. They also recently have been increasing their hold in this company. They are up 26% on this company. BlackRock has increased by 9%, Citigroup by 172%, State Street by 19%. Notice how none of these are decreasing until we get lower down to names I don't know. Two Sigma's lowered, but yeah, there we go. Pretty much almost everyone is buying more shares of this company and are significantly down on it. So that is very interesting to me to see. One thing I wanted to note, Bank of America has an average price of $5.20 and has recently increased their sharehold by 227%, and they own about $2 million worth of this company. So these companies aren't buying this thing up without the expectation of at least recovering some of their losses. Okay, so they are expecting this to go up, and as a result, I am expecting this to potentially go up. Now, this is risky. And not a suggestion to buy, sell, or hold any asset whatsoever. It could come all the way back down to $1. It could go bankrupt, especially with Tesla licensing out its own charging stations now and charging ports to legacy automakers. So keep that in mind. This is a trade. This is not an investment. I think this thing is going to, over maybe 6 months or so, find its way back up to $5-6, and then I'm going to run away from it. That is my plan. I would not hold this for a super long time because of that. Okay, so let's take a look now at Adobe. We haven't looked at Adobe in a little while. How's Adobe doing? Adobe is okay. Adobe's not doing so bad. So remember, we were talking about down here at 435, it came all the way up to 580, mostly off of this jump here. We are now, so we did a little pullback, right? And we're coming out of that pullback. I like that. If we can get above 569, I am looking at this thing to come back to 582. And if it can clear 582, we're coming all the way up to the top of this channel here. We're on our way up to the top of this channel here at $6.12. At that point, I don't know exactly where it's going to go. Because now we have this huge weekly cup here, right? If it gets above this cup and gets above 638, we have room all the way up to like $800, even $900. Adobe does have some significant competition with AI coming out, with Microsoft getting a lot more into things like photo editing and things like that. Like yesterday, I was just in Windows in the photo viewer, and it was allowing me to do a lot of things that I used to only be able to do on Photoshop. So Adobe does have its work cut out for it. It doesn't mean that I think the stock is done yet. I do think that it is slowly working on completing that big weekly cup that I've been showing for a while here. I do think it has room up to the top of this channel, at least at $612, and we'll see what it does from there. But I do think it is on its way there. Okay, let's take a look at Block. We haven't looked at Block in a little while. I mean, I have, but I haven't brought it to the channel. Block. Remember how I was saying this looked like an inverse head and shoulders right here? Shoulder, head, shoulder. It was. Look at that. It came out to it. Look at where it went. It went exactly to that 73.66 line. Remember how back here when it was all the way up at $70, I was like, it needs to get above 73.66. That's when we start turning really bullish on this thing. Notice how that is still a point of resistance for this thing that it needs to get above. And I still hold that idea, that opinion that it gets above 73.66. That's when we turn pretty bullish on this thing and we find ourselves back all the way up here at like $86 real fast. I'm still kind of waiting for that right now, because right now it looks like it does have a little more room to the downside at the moment. Let's see where we are right now. Yeah, we could come down to the yellow line here at $66 now that we have broken beneath the 5-day and we are back within the ATR bands here. So I could see us coming back down to 66, maybe even 67-ish area, and then turning around and coming back up from there on Block right now. But this is going to benefit from Bitcoin going up. It's going to benefit from the fact that they're getting into the Bitcoin space with mining. They are buying Bitcoin, and also interest rates coming down. They are a buy now, pay later platform. So they will be getting money through that, as well as quantitative easing sets into the market. And anyways, that's all I've got for you today. Please like, comment, subscribe, share this video, and have a profitable day.